few months, indefinitely, let's say, and I'll definitely notify you otherwise, these meetings will be held on the second Wednesday. Because Shay has class on Tuesdays, and now I have class on Tuesdays, so we coordinated everything in the name of Mesh. But yeah, so welcome. Feel free to grab some pizza, and if you can, we have a little donation jar just to cover the pizza, basically. We really run on pretty bare bones here. Okay, so we have two presentations to get started, and then we're going to break out into working groups. The first, Scott's going to talk a little bit about a report by the city, the New York City Infrastructure Internet Master Plan. So I keep forgetting the name the last few days. So yeah.
Hi, my name's Scott. How's it going? I am just here to talk really briefly. This was just put together at the last minute because I was like, is anybody going to talk about this? But it was a big development in our city over the last week or two. Somewhat maybe big development, maybe a strong word, but it was a development in our city related to internet access. And I thought it'd be at least appropriate to make sure everybody's kind of aware of what the city's thinking, because Mesh, we've had lots of conversations here and there with the city in different kinds of capacities, and this kind of provides us an opportunity to try to collect some of those efforts into a single effort in working with the city, at least formally with kind of Do It, which is the Department of Information Technology and Telecommunications and all of those sorts of things. So I'm just going to be really brief. They released a New York City Internet Master Plan, which has been many, probably years in the works. It was put out by the CTO's office. Josh Breitbart, who is very familiar with Mesh, and knows the internet landscape in the city really well, helped to put it together. He's been working on it for ages, as long as I've known Josh for. And it's an incredible report, and I really recommend everybody go home and read it and poke around through it, because it's really laying out what the city's strategy is going to be in the next decade or more about trying to fill the digital divide in our city, create greater access to advanced technologies in the city, and a whole range of other things. I'm just starting here because I think that this is where the report starts, which is talking about the digital divide in our city, namely that 1.5 million people in New York City don't have access to home internet or mobile internet. And I think that's a pretty powerful statistic when you think about connectivity in our city. Namely, 18% of residents. A recent report shows that about 29% of people don't have home internet at all, which is kind of where Mesh really comes into play. These are just kind of a couple things that I thought I'd run through that I thought was interesting. One is just about choice in the city and about where ISPs do operate. Obviously, we are not an ISP, but for some folks, we do fill that need. This kind of gives a general breakdown, and we often hear a lot of frustration from folks who are saying, I hate Spectrum, I hate Verizon, whatever it may be. It really shows and illuminates that for the most part, people in New York City don't really have a choice about where they get internet connectivity from. A lot of the areas you look at where Mesh is operating really has, one, if they're lucky, maybe two ISPs available for them. Again, not trying to brand us as saying that we're an ISP, but it is a need that we're meeting for a lot of folks in our community. One kind of celebration was that NYC Mesh was listed among a number of folks who are working on internet in our city, namely everybody else is private corporations who are trying to make money off of this venture. Obviously, that is not what Mesh is interested in doing, and really antithetical to the work that we try to do here in fostering a community network that's so much more than internet access, that's trying to create a community, a way to share information, create a network amongst ourselves and amongst others that we know. But I thought it was really cool and fun to note that we are listed as one of 8 actual providers in the city. The most fun part here that I'll just draw your attention to is estimated monthly cost. I thought was just a really fun fact because it lists everybody's estimated monthly cost, and then NYC Mesh here is at $0 per month as our estimated monthly internet cost, which obviously again, we're not kind of an internet service provider, and we ask whatever people can afford to be able to pay, but I thought that that was kind of fun to see that contrast in the report. A little bit just about some of where the direction that the report goes. helpful piece of background is that internet service providers or broadband providers or other telecommunications companies in the city have franchise agreements with the city. This is basically a contract that folks sign with the city to be able to have access to public rights of ways, city buildings, other types of city assets, poles. And so the report kind of talks a little bit about what that process is and the importance of having that. That's something that I personally am really interested in trying to find ways to work with our city to be able to achieve in order to start gaining access to some of city buildings. There's always talk about, oh, we should find a way to site on this DOE building, or like, this is a great sited building and we could put something on top, make it a hub, be able to serve people in the area. That requires a franchise agreement with the city and is something that I would love to start looking into more. This is, again, it's like, these are really, really small, but the report also actually covers some information about where rooftop fixed wireless access opportunities. And this is kind of based on city data around building height and variability in certain areas. And you can really see that actually a lot of the areas that NYC Mesh operates is rated high. So lots of opportunity for wireless connectivity. As we kind of branch out into other areas that we are, it's a bit less. I don't think this is saying anything new to lots of folks. You have open up Google Maps or the NYC Mesh map, and it kind of illuminates the same thing. The NYC plan, this kind of just outlines their basic kind of process. So what they're really looking to do is start coordinating city agencies around access and figuring out how to use city assets to be able to advance broadband deployment in the city. Then the second kind of point and what they're really working towards doing is optimizing these through public-private partnerships. And again, this is where that franchise agreement discussion comes into play. The city is going to be putting out basically an RFP in. We can talk to Josh about exactly what the timeline is. And I was suggesting that actually we have the city come and talk to some of us about, or present here about what that could look like. But it's going to basically be asking for proposals from the nonprofit community, from the private sector, about how to create public-private partnerships to be able to do deployment in the city, i.e. using city assets like rooftops, poles, right-of-ways, things of that. That's something that I think NYC Mesh should certainly engage in. We would probably be the only nonprofit engaging in that activity. There may be some other folks around, but I think there's a lot of opportunity here to really propose not only innovative solutions for trying to get access to city assets, but also to connect our friends and neighbors. And then some of the further on, number 3 and 4, I actually don't think is as relevant. We can talk a lot more about the report later if anybody's really interested in discussing it, but a lot of that comes up with trying to find ways to have Verizon, for example, invest in infrastructure and kind of have co-investments, which I think are things that we may want to think about strategically, but may not quite be available with us because we don't have tens of millions of dollars to invest in city assets. So the real thing that I want to draw everybody's attention to is this idea of creating proposals and them trying to open up this proposal process for public-private partnerships. I think we need to think about a franchise agreement, and then we need to think about trying to be competitive in this process. Also, beyond that, something that I'd really like to look forward and look into doing and finding is a way that we can be an advocacy organization in this process for prioritizing nonprofits, community networks, our kind of friends in this space in this process. Right now, it's going to be folks like Starry, Verizon, Charter, all the kind of big names that you can imagine that are going to be honestly probably hungry for city assets and finding ways to be able to exploit and utilize those assets for their bottom line. We obviously come into this conversation in a very different way. And in my view, the city should be prioritizing organizations like ours and our friends in this space when thinking about how to use these city assets. So I kind of just outlined a couple of things I was thinking about, but NYC Mesh, we should look into a franchise agreement. We should talk to the city about prioritizing nonprofits and community networks in that process, and then ensuring equitable access to city property. Verizon is likely to have a team of attorneys or other folks that can work on these types of issues, and we need to find a way to be able to collaborate with the city in a way that kind of ensures an equitable access to city resources. And then finally, identifying opportunities for the city to in-kind us resources. So a lot of these may have electrical hookups, and finding ways that the city can kind of pay for that, or rooftop space, maybe another kind of in-kind, but other sorts of opportunities where we can use existing city resources to be able to advance the NYC Mesh network. I think that that's my last slide, actually. So point being, take-home message is really recommend everybody taking a look at the report. I'd love to invite the city to come and talk to us a little bit more about what this process is actually going to look like. It's very kind of vague and outlined in the report, but I'd really love to see NYC Mesh play a role in not only kind of advancing our own interests in this process, but advancing the interests of others in the nonprofit community. That's my brief.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, we'll post that onto Slack and social media. I definitely recommend you look at it. It's 88 pages, and kind of just to stress Scott's side, they do mention multiple times, the city mentions their dissatisfaction with the business partnerships that they've had over the last few years, and also that there was something to the extent of this will be the next great chapter in connectivity since the start of the internet. So this is a really great opportunity. I definitely recommend you read it. And so now we're, oh yeah, Jolly.
I have a question.
Sure.
Which is, so part of this is that the franchises for Verizon and Spectrum, is it, are both coming up this year for renewal?
That's it, yeah. I think they're both this year. Yeah.
So are there opportunities to like squeeze them for stuff like access to their pipes for getting from point to point, you know, in the same way that in the last time they had to do public access TV, so that, you know, to sort of put in some demands so that when that are in there when they renew the franchises?
Yeah, I think that, yeah, that's using infrastructure that's already exists and has a lot of really restrictive laws around it, so that would be excellent. And I mean, that's thoughts like that are great too.
And I'll just add on to that kind of
Use the mic.
Oh, sorry. I'll add that kind of the additional importance, I think, that we in Mesh, kind of the opportunity that we have here is that there really aren't other organizations that are really interested in these issues. We're incredibly unique in the city landscape. We represent people and communities and all of us that are here in a way that I think is at a grassroots level that a lot of other folks don't have. So it really provides us to be kind of one of the only people at the table when we're talking about the renewal of these franchise agreements, really representing grassroots community organizations.
So we'll just have your question, and we will be talking about this a lot more over the upcoming months. So
it seems like we should be putting together something of a wish list, because it seems like there's a number of different assets and things that we should be interested in. How do we want to collect that and put it together?
We could start, Jillian's saying we could make a Slack channel. We could start, I mean, I don't know what these kind of requests for proposals are going to look like, and I think that that's somewhat open. I think that I am very hopeful that the city puts together kind of an asset inventory that we're going to be able to look at, because right now, navigating some of the online databases of city assets, that does exist, and maybe a project that some folks or some collection of people, myself included, or others want to start working on and identifying what kind of assets would actually be of use. There's, I think, 13,000 or some ridiculous number of city-owned buildings across the city. So huge opportunity, but also a huge amount of data to try to decipher and sift through. But I think putting together a wish list is absolutely what we should do, and get ourselves organized on that front, putting together a one-pager so that we can talk with folks at City Council, get advocates there, and really have a clear plan of this is what we expect this process to look like coming from our community and the people that we all represent and all are, and getting that out there. So I think that it's a real opportunity and something we should talk about doing.
Yeah, I definitely think if we can get the city to kind of give us a more articulate, detailed list of what they are looking for, maybe we can arrange a presentation in the next month or so.
And I'll just note also that ISOC has expressed interest in this also. And
Yes.
so Jillian and I actually spoke with some folks with ISOC who are really excited about seeing this plan come out and trying to figure out how to organize around it. So I think that we could lean on our friends at ISOC to be able to get assistance in this effort and kind of support in terms of their networks and other sorts of things. So we can kind of think strategically about whether there's other organizations that could be good allies in the process as well.
Great.
Specifically, what we could do is go to ISOC for money to run a town hall on the plan.
All right, this is on isoc.live. Do you want to? I know. I have a phone call tomorrow about more money. All right, so this is a good segue. One of our newer volunteers, Tariq, is coming up, and so Scott kind of gave a macro level of what the city is looking for, and Tariq is going to give a presentation about working with NYCHA and working with the residents there to actually help with some of this disparity in connectivity. So if you want to come on up, you have to give the presentation up here. So. Oh, you have it? Okay, let's just do that because I may have not emailed it to the right email. Sorry guys, my email never went through. So, and I think that's it. One second, sorry. Do you want to talk about it? No, it's all good. Sorry, I'm just going to resend this email. No, it's fine. I have it up here. I think I might have I think I typed in Adobe Makers Studio. Sorry, Willem, if you're live streaming right now. I did just re-email it.
Do you have an export?
No, don't worry about it. I just sent it again.
But if it's the same format.
Oh, it's the form. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What, can we open it on Google?
Cool.
Open with Google Slides.
Okay,
Nope,
much
that's-
better.
I think I made it. Okay. Should be okay.
All right, everybody. How are you today? Sorry, I'm a little introverted, but I'm gonna try my best. So, connecting NYCHA and NYC Mesh, how we can better improve access and engagement with our neighbors. So, a little background about NYCHA. New York City Housing Authority, organization that supplies and manages low and moderate income housing for residents throughout New York City. There are 326 developments in the 5 boroughs that house over 400,000 residents, about 8.2% of the population. The current state of NYCHA is in a bit of disarray. In 2018, a study determined that NYCHA needed $31.8 billion in repairs. There's a current lawsuit on behalf of tenants for uninhabitable conditions, and the federal government is suing NYCHA for health and safety violations. HUD actually took partial control of NYCHA in 2019. The city had to agree to cede power or risk HUD taking full control of NYCHA. That includes de Blasio installing one of HUD's employees as the chairman of NYCHA. The city of New York has considered demolishing certain developments and or partnering with private developers. And like Scott said, 1.5 million residents in New York City don't have a mobile nor a broadband connection. That's roughly 20%. That's roughly 20% of the population. Now, how we can help each other. NYCHA has some of the tallest buildings in New York City, which means we will have more line of sight to reach new areas. With 326 developments, NYCHA covers a large footprint. NYCHA has some of the largest buildings in the outer boroughs. So if we get those buildings, we wouldn't have to worry so much about the obstacles that we normally have to when we are installing on normal residential buildings. We'll be able to expand the mesh to low-income communities and give them a high-quality, neutral, and affordable connectivity. Now, some of the problems we anticipate are NYCHA residents may be less receptive at first. The saying goes, people fear what they do not know. At first, residents may be suspicious of us. It's to my understanding that NYC Mesh actually met with some NYCHA residents, and there was a lot of skepticism, mainly from older folks, regarding the monthly payment. When people hear free, it rings bells in their head. Like, you want my credit card information. Are you sure you're not going to charge me every month? Are you sure it's just a donation? As somebody who grew up in NYCHA and grew up in low income, I understand their skepticism. And I understand that we're going to have to build trust in these communities in order to break the suspicion around NYC Mesh. And how we can begin to build trust, we can meet people on the streets. In my community in Brownsville, I know there's very high traffic points where a lot of other nonprofits like to set up tables so they could interact with people coming down the street. I believe NYC Mesh can do something similar. Create a couple of banners and shirts, make us look like a serious organization. I'm sorry. That's not what I meant. Reaching out to community leaders and centers. In Brownsville, at least, every project complex has a community center. There's probably 3 a block away from me. And these community centers have leaders who have the clout in the community. People trust their leaving their kids in their after-school programs. These people grew up in the neighborhood, and they have built a reputation. So by getting them on board, we can easily build trust with the community much faster than we can by going individual to individual. Reaching out to organizations that train urban youth. I've been in a few of these organizations myself. Empower, Perscolis, Henry Street Settlement. Organizations like these love helping low and moderate income youth, especially helping them get experience. So a partnership with these communities, which also have a lot of respect in low-income neighborhoods, not only can we have more volunteers, but we can also reach out. We can also have more members, as many of my classmates in Perscolis were low income. Recruiting locals from the neighborhood. The best people fear what they do not know, but if I know my neighbor has all these great reviews about NYC Mesh, then maybe I won't be as skeptical. So it's important that the neighborhoods you want to get into the most, you recruit from these neighborhoods. At the end of this day, we will be creating a working group specifically for reaching into NYCHA. And if anybody would like to contribute to this group, by all means, speak to me after the presentation. And now, any questions for me? Yes?
Do you think that there would be groups that would help organize like a community board meeting or an open roundtable, like the meeting that Yumi and Willem went to, where we just like went and answered, like whoever had questions, we would just like go and answer those questions. Do you think you'll do anything like a roundtable or like a come and talk to us kind of meeting?
Yes, I do believe there are a few organizations. I believe that the community centers in these neighborhoods would love to do that, especially because a lot of the community centers are the only places where people can get internet access, but there's only so many computers. So being able to bring internet into their own home would actually alleviate some of the stress from these centers. And also there are organizations like YEIP and Perscolis and Empower that do train low incomes and do look out for their low-income residents. So I believe organizations like these, we can bring together, at, like you said, a round table to discuss expansion.
Forgive me if this isn't aware of something we've already raised on Slack, but given the upcoming census, is there an opportunity maybe for NYC Mesh to facilitate access to the forms that need to be responded to in that regard? That could be a partnering opportunity, but if that many people are without the capacity to respond to an electronic census request, that's a huge need.
It is interesting. Census in my neighborhood is actually door to door a lot, but I don't really know how to answer that question, but that is something I will look into.
Well, with the census, this is the first year I think it's going to be entirely electronic, so they do anticipate that lack of connectivity will hinder a lot of people from actually completing it. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. If people don't have any more questions about this, or yeah, we can, sure. We'll also break out into a working group and discuss this.
I'm just sort of thinking this through. If I was, if someone came into my neighborhood and said, hey, how would you like free internet? I'd be like, why? I mean, what do you know? But if someone said, look, we've got a program where some kids who are entering high school can get internet access, then you go, oh, okay, so you're trying to encourage kids to go to school. And so it's not that you don't want to do it for everyone, but it seems to me it'd be a little more palatable because you'd understand. You'd say, well, we're trying to encourage STEM work and stuff like that. And you think maybe that might be, and also you can't really do everyone at once anyway, right?
I do agree, yes. I think using the kids would be a good point, specifically because schools are more electronic, schoolwork is more electronic, and when I was leaving school, I needed a computer. I couldn't complete my assignments without it. So I do think that would be an excellent point to help alleviate the suspicion.
Yeah, like initially.
Yes.
And then, oh, okay.
I would also add that
Hi, this is not a question, but I think we should not say it's free. to start with. I mean, it's not free.
Affordable.
Affordable, or I mean, I don't know. It can be free if you don't donate. But I mean, it's not free. Someone has to pay for it. So I would not say, oh, you can get free internet. I think this is the wrong message. I think that's the wrong message.
Yes, like you said, with 50 cents a grant, you apply for this and you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'll be a larger situation, but the word free is maybe we can continue saying community owned, community run, and then the money will come in depending on each situation. Yes, yeah.
I just want to say that we, the Internet Society, have another project going in NYC, which is with the Digital Divide Partnership up in Harlem. And they already have done one project in Grove Houses, which is at the east side of, the west side of 125th Street. And what they do is they put in internet into the building and hotspots, and they put in a radio station so that, and then people can get the radio station on their, via internet. And the other thing they did is put in cameras, and it's counterintuitive to what everybody's so worried about privacy. But if you go on our live stream, you'll see we just did this round table with them where they praise the cameras and say now they feel safe because there's cameras in the building, and then because of this radio station, it's building the sense of community. So there are other aspects beyond just connectivity, and this is an example of something that you can do within a local community without even having to go out, brought out into the wider internet by using IP technology. And so these people, NYC Mesh put in for a large grant for this year, and they didn't get it. The people in Harlem got the money, so obviously their project, has value. Okay.
All right. If we don't have any more questions, although I do really like it being on the record anyways, a lot of these ideas, we're going to break out into a lot of our working groups. Especially if you're new, this is a great way to get involved immediately on different projects and find ways to kind of exercise your skills or learn some new skills. If you're brand new to NYC Mesh and you just want to learn about what our network is, we're going to meet in the FAR conference room right by the door by the elevators and discuss that. We have some volunteer forms, can discuss it a bit, and then depending on how long that goes, you can break out into other stuff or different conversations. We're also going to have one to kind of continue this conversation about working with NYCHA and some kind of getting some action items down on paper. So maybe we're gonna have a stand by the end of the month or something like that at some event, very loosely planned. And then if anyone else has other groups or discussions that they specifically want to do, usually in the conference room closest to us, we have a tech conversation. I'm not sure if there's a topic today, but if people want to discuss more of that end, feel free to go in there or just chat to whomever. Yeah. So, all right. So let's break up. Oh, yeah, sure.
Maybe a way to include folks who aren't. This may be a bad idea, so bear with me. But just trying to think about ways to be able to get people involved in projects if you have going on, because we have lots of side conversations with lots of things that are going on that are hot topics that people think of. So if you're working on a project and you're actively excited about trying to work with other people on it, maybe we can just get some paper and just write what your kind of topic or issue is that you're kind of working on with maybe one or two other people, and just kind of write it down and put it on so that when other people kind of walk around or are looking or engaged in conversation, they can say, oh, you guys are talking about this. This is the website. This is really interesting to me. Can I join that conversation? And just to try to kind of, I guess, maybe get more folks involved in the kind of dialogues a lot of people already have going on.
Yeah, and feel free to move around as you would like. So great. Yeah, thanks for coming. Thank you.